What is the first thing you do when you wake up if you're frantically scrolling through news apps, jumping between CNN, BBC, Reuters, checking Twitter for breaking news, and then opening 10 different tabs to get a complete picture of what is happening or what has happened overnight? Stop that. You're literally starting every day in reactive panic mode. What if I told you that there is a way to get a personalized news briefing delivered automatically to you before you even wake up? No apps to check, no endless scrolling, just pure summarized intelligence waiting for you. And this has nothing to do with finding the perfect news app or becoming a speed reader. The simple automation helped me turn information chaos into a 5-minute morning briefing that covers everything I need to know. This is exactly how it works. So if I change to my screen here, over here, this is how it will work. I can have an automation where I can literally say what is happening in Malta today on timesofmalta.com, right? And this can be an automated thing that gives you an email, that sends you an email before you even wake up, or you can customize it however and in whatever way that you want. This automation is now running, so it is going to the site. It actually created a window, a session, and I can also have a look at what is happening in the background, in the sense that I get an email link that I can open up right now that has gone to the site. It has scraped the whole contents of the site. And now in a second, I'll get an update right here with the actual thing that was on the site, on the timesofmalta.com. And I'll get a summary of what actually is happening in my country right now. So here, as reported by the Times of Malta, we got the following things. We got the weather information, which is currently 28 degrees. National news highlights, so there's development in that case. There's a probe into whatever that is. Alleged drug kingpin has been granted bail. So we're getting all the information directly right here in n8n. And obviously this can then be sent as an email. It can be sent through WhatsApp, as a voice note. There's a lot of things that you can do once you have the information right here in n8n. And in this video, what I want to show you is how to build this automation, so you'll know exactly what you need to do in order to either use this as is or even customize this as you see fit. So getting the news and knowing what is happening in your country, if this is how you choose to use it, will never be an issue. If you want this to go to different sites and compare prices, it will never be an issue. You literally get the ability to open up a browser programmatically through this automation right here, which will go to the site that you want, scrape the information, click on stuff, and a bunch of other pretty cool, in my opinion, stuff. So with that said, let's get right into it. So for this one, what I'm going to be using is a tool called Airtop. And this is just a tool that I very recently discovered, and I think it is an awesome tool. So once you sign up here, in my case, I'm just going to log in. This is what you will see. So you have the ability to enter a URL, and you will literally see this happening and like this stuff happening in real time. You can choose a profile name. You can use a proxy if you want. You can auto solve CAPTCHA, so you can take that if needed. And you can have an idle timeout right there. One great thing about this is that in addition to being able to scrape any site, essentially, because it will go on the site and then see what is happening there, you also get the ability to add profiles. So here you can create a profile and give this login credentials, so you can, so it can even access stuff that is behind a membership login, behind a paywall if you have obviously paid for that. You can set in your credentials, your username and password, so this will actually be able to log in for you and get the right pieces of information. Over here, you get the API keys, which is what you will need to do in order to set this up. And over here, you'll be able to see any browser sessions that you will have either ongoing, initializing, running, completed, and cancelled. Here, you can also manually terminate sessions if need be. So this is important, that if you have sessions that are happening, they need to be terminated, because if not, they will keep essentially decreasing the amount of credits that you have. And speaking of credits, this is on the free plan. So if I go to my settings right here, so account settings, and click on billing, you see that I'm on the free plan, which gives me 5,000 credits. I used around 500 of those, so about 10% as I was testing. And I've used about 18 minutes of CPU time. So this is based essentially on that in terms of CPU time. If you were to go on a higher paid plan, this starts at $29 per month right there, and you get 30,000 credits. You obviously can opt for more credits as well. So if you go on one of the paid plans, the great thing is that you get simultaneous sessions as well. So it's not just one session or one agent or one robot that is covering the web for whatever it is you want done. You can have multiple ones doing that at the same time. And if you go to the professional, then that jumps to 30 simultaneous sessions at once. Here on the enterprise, you get 100 simultaneous sessions. Obviously, that's 380 per month. But imagine having the ability to have 100 simultaneous sessions happening at the same time. There's a lot that you can do right there. And obviously, that is the monthly plan. So if you switch to yearly, the cost, I guess, comes a bit down. So you save 10% right there. So from 290, that goes to 318 per year. Cool. So how does this actually work? If we go back to our n8n here, let's actually start building this from scratch. So you'll be able to see what is actually happening. So over here, if I create a new workflow, let's dive right into this. And the first thing I'm going to have here is a chat trigger. So I will say that essentially this will start when I have a chat message dictated here. Eventually, at the end, I'll show you how to do this on autopilot so that if you wanted to get your news summary at 6 a.m. in the morning, so you have it before you wake up, you can also get that done. Then we're going to connect this to an AI agent so that we'll have the ability to allow the agent to decide what tools to use, right? The way Airtop has been set up is that you can either add the normal nodes right here. So you have the Airtop, and then, for example, you can create a session, right? And you get the square nodes like so. Alternatively, you can also connect these as tools. So if I go here and add Airtop, I now have the Airtop tool, which has a bunch of options. So now, since I added this as a tool, I get it added in the circular shape to the agent. Speaking of the operations that are available, first of all, there are the resources, right? There's session, there's windows, extraction, and interaction. Session is all about creating the sessions, terminating the sessions, or saving profile on termination. Then we have the window, where we can create a new browser window. We can load the URL, take a screenshot, or close the window. We have the ability to use the extraction resource, where we can query a page. We can query a page with pagination. We can also have a smart scraper. So scrape a page and return the data as markdown. So this could also be one thing to do. In my case, I just had a query page because you can ask a question given the data on the page. So you can also be very specific in what you are asking it to do. You're not just limited to scraping all the data on the page. You can also say, I don't know, give me the top 3 stories, right? If it is a newspaper sort of site. So it is extraction, and then we have the interaction. Oops. So we had extraction, and now we have the interaction, which gives us the ability to click on elements, to hover on an element as well, and to also type. So there's a lot that you can do right there. Cool. So how does this actually work? The way I've set this up in the original build is as follows. So the tool has a start session, which calls a different workflow, which in our case, in the original one that I built, I created this directly in the same workflow. However, it is still being called by this when executed by another workflow, which means that in n8n's eyes, it counts as a new workflow. So let's just get that done. So here, essentially, we're going to go to the tools. We're going to call another n8n workflow tool. And once I create that, I'll be able to choose it from the list. So if I call this n8n Airtop YouTube, now over here, I can call this same workflow. And this might seem a bit strange, but all we're doing is allowing this agent using this tool to call a different workflow or a new set of workflows, right? And in this case, the trigger, if I go to add another trigger here, it will be when executed by another workflow. So here, since we are in the same workflow, this n8n workflow tool will be able to call n8n Airtop YouTube, which is this same workflow right here. So anything that we have after this node will get called by this agent when it makes use of this tool. So this will be call or start session. Let's call that. And here for the start session, essentially what we will need is the input given by the user, right? So here we'll have a string name. Let's call it user input. So now, if we were to, first of all, connect a chat model to our agent. So let's go with OpenAI chat model right here using GPT-4 Omni. That's fine. And now if we start the session, as you can see, we've got the user input right there. So here we will let the model define this, because this will be defined by what the user would have given us in the chat. What we want once we get this sub execution executed is for us to use Airtop to create a session. So here we can give it a name if we want, we can save profile, but that's pretty much it. So in this case, let's just run this. So we'll be able to create a session. And if it's the first time doing this, you'll need to create a credential on Airtop. So as I showed you here, if we go to Airtop, you can go to API keys, you can create a new key, and then you can edit right here in n8n. So create a new credential and just save the API key there. Since we created a new session, we got this session ID right here. So even if I go to my browser sessions, I should see a session that is running. As you can see, this is now running, which is great. So what the thing to know is that this is now taking away from my credits, right? Because my session is running. So first we create the session. And now what I want to do is create a window. So think about this as if you started your computer and then you're essentially creating or opening up a new browser window, right? So we're going to create a window. Here, the session ID is already included from the session ID here. So now I can execute this step. And this will now give me a window ID in addition to the session ID from before. Which also means that if I flip this on, actually I need to flip this on, I will get a live view. Let's see if I can execute this once more. Great. And now I get a live view URL. So if I were to open this in my browser, I will essentially see a new browser window. So anything I do to my session will be reflected in this browser window. For example, if I go to Airtop, I go to load a page, and for the URL, I type in https://yahoo.com, and I execute this. In a second, as you can see, this went to yahoo.com. So you can see in real time or as close to that as possible what is happening in your session. So what I want to do, instead of loading a window, is to get that session ID and send it to myself in an email. So I'm going to send a message to myself. And the way or the reason why I want to do this is because I want to, if I want, see what is happening in the background. So new window created. And I'm just going to pass along that live URL right there. Execute the step. So now if I go to my inbox, I should get an email with that same URL. So now this should be on yahoo.com. Awesome. So this is working as expected. So what I'm going to do as I'm building this is just terminate the session right here. So yes, terminate. And let's actually just create window. Yeah, in the create window, we have the ability to put in a URL. So this, let's just say, will be, yeah, it will be, so here we have the user input. Let me think about this. So what we want here is we want to essentially navigate to a page, right? That's pretty much it. So the user input should technically be the website to go to. And if we know that this will always be the same website, we can also hard code this, but let's just make it variable. So instead of user input right here, let's just change that to website to open. I think it will make more sense. So now if we execute that, here we need to refresh this. So let's see if we go to, yeah, we get the ability to refresh this. So now website to open will be defined by the agent. And here I'm just going to say the website the user wants to go to, starting with https://. So I'm putting that there in case the user doesn't put that. Because if there is no HTTPS protocol, the whole automation will crash based on the way Airtop runs. So I think that's pretty good. So we have the website to visit. We have this, which is the website to open. And here, what I want to do is just, let's execute this. So if I go to Airtop and run this once, when we go to create a window, we should be able to access the information that the user would eventually give us. So once this session is created, great, we should be able to drag that right here. So now, if we test this as it would be when the user actually runs this, let's terminate this first of all. And as you can see, sometimes it takes a few seconds for that to happen. So terminate. The request has been sent. Let's refresh. Okay, so there are no running sessions. Great. So now if I go to my chat agent right here and type in go to timesofmalta.com and send enter, this will use the start a session. You will not see it because this is running. This is a sub workflow. So the only way to see this actually happening would be to go to the executions. Now, the only thing that I didn't do is provide the actual session ID and the window ID, which is something we will need. So here, start session, let's see, should have sent the email, okay, but I've opened the website, you can view the content there, okay, cool. So I should have gotten an email in my inbox, but the issue is that I wouldn't know what the session ID or the window ID is. So if I open up the session preview, that is working as expected. So that's fine. So let's just terminate this. We'll go to running, terminate. And also, once we terminate that, the browser gets disconnected. So this is great. If we go to all, just to confirm this is manually terminated, great. What I want to do here is just return the session ID and the Windows ID, because we will need to use those in the following tools. So here from Airtop, okay, I need to execute that in order to get this. Okay, so we have to create a new session here. Right, cool. So in a second, I should be able to, get the session ID and get the Windows ID. So now, if I save this, go back here, run this or refresh this and terminate. If I try the chat window once more, so go to timesofmalta.com. And then let's actually just put that as the message. So what I want to see is that the agent is able to return the session ID and the Windows ID, as I said. So let's see. I've opened the Times of Malta website for you. Okay, cool. Yeah, start session. And as you can see, we got those 2 pieces of data right there, which is great. So let's just go back here, refresh, and let's terminate the ongoing session. So refresh, terminate. Cool, that's manually terminated. So we have the first tool right here, which is the start session. Now, what we want is that once we are on the website, we are able to query it. And one thing I want to mention is that you could use the different tools right here and add them to the agent. So we could have the create a session as a tool that the agent can run and the create a window. However, I did that so that I'm able to have the Gmail tool right here. And the way I see this, since this is sort of a linear sort of flow, first we create, then we create. So first we create the session, then we create the window, then we create the message, the Gmail message. And then we want to have the session ID and Windows ID. So that's the only reason why I created this in a linear sort of format. But you can definitely use that as a tool. So here, the next thing we're going to do is go to Airtop again, and this time we're going to extract information using the query page. So this will allow us to use an existing session. So you can also create a new session right here using the query page, as you can see. So use existing session. For the session ID, we're going to leave it up to the agent to decide, and same with the Windows ID, because the agent will have access to that. And here the prompt will be, just get the top 5 stories from the website. Yeah, let's leave it at that. So this is the extraction, or let's call query extract. And what I want to then do is just have another Airtop tool that will end the session. So here, instead of create session, we'll just have terminate session. We have the session ID, so let's also leave that to the AI to decide. Let's call this end session. So now we have an end session, we have a query extract, and we have a start session. So now I'm just going to go to the AI agent, and I'm going to give it a system message. I'm going to say, you're a helpful assistant that starts a browsing session using the start session tool. This will return a session ID and a Windows ID. You will use these in the next tools you call. After you have this info, use the query extract tool to get the top pieces of news from the site. Once you get that, use the end session tool to close the ongoing session. Then return the extracted news back to the user. And let's test that out. So I'm going to save. I'm going to say what's happening on the timesofmalta.com. I'm going to hit enter. And let's see what happens here. So this should start the session. I should get an email in a second. So let's see if I got that. 219. Nope. Starting the session. Okay, I got the email. So now it's using the query extract tool. This is what is happening. So it went to the site. It disconnected. So I'm assuming it got the stuff it needed because we have no errors here. And now in a second, after the session ends, this should go back to OpenAI in order to format that in the correct way. So as you can see, it went to OpenAI. So here, great. We're now getting the top 5 news right here, right? And those are the news that are happening today. So this is pretty much what this is doing. If I refresh here, we should not have any ongoing sessions as well. So the last session was terminated 32 seconds ago, which makes sense based on what we built right here. So let's say that you want to get an email with the news that are happening every single day, right? So what you could do is you could, instead of like the message can be what's happening on the Times of Malta, so this we can keep. What we could then do is just disconnect this. We could run a cron job, which is a schedule trigger. And let's say that this will run every day at, I don't know, let's run it now at 3 p.m. at the minute 26. So let's give ourselves a minute and a half or so of buffer. Here I'm going to put an edit, or actually a set with the query. Paste that, what's happening on the timesofmalta.com, and connect that. And now the query will be defined below. So it will be defined by this. Let's see if we need to connect. Okay, cool. We can just drag that. We can connect this. And what I want at the end is to connect to Gmail. So in the Gmail tool, I'm going to send an email to myself with your news update. And I'm going to leave the message to be defined automatically by the model. So now, if I go to the model here, I'm just going to say at the end, use the Gmail tool to send the top 5 news pieces to the user. Cool. I'm going to save, and I think that's pretty much it. So I'm going to turn this on, and let's see what happens. If I go to executions and wait a few seconds, because the time now is 3:25, which you can't really see here, but time now is 3:25. So at 3:26, this should automatically run. So it will run the main workflow. It will run the sub workflow to create the session right here. And then we should get the main news served as an email a few seconds after that. So I just go back to my email here. Time is 3:26, and let's see what happens. So nothing here so far. Okay, Nothing yet. This is auto refresh. I believe I set it to daily, right? So schedule trigger. Days, 1 day between trigger. Okay, at 3:26. Once you activate it, it is activated. So I don't see anything wrong there. But at the same time, nothing is happening here. So let me just see what is happening here. Okay, cool. So it ran a bit after 3:26. It ran at 3:26:55. So there was the need to wait a bit for that. If I refresh my email, I got this new window created as expected. And now this is still running right here. So once that finishes, I'm expecting to get an email with the updates of the day sort of thing, which were pretty much the same thing we got in the chat window right here. So in a second, I'll have a look at my email, but I hope that you can see that this can become a very powerful sort of automation because you're not confined to anything that you can just extract or scrape data from. You can have this agent that is literally opening up a browser window, going to the specific website, getting or querying information there using natural language, and then possibly serving you the information to your email inbox, to Slack, to WhatsApp, whatever it is you want to use. So here we've got the thing to complete right here. So if I go back to my inbox, let's see, if I refresh, yeah, I get your news update. So here are the top news pieces from Times of Malta. And I got those same pieces of information right here as I got through the chat window. So this is working as expected. If you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know in the chat. If you have any ideas for videos, let me know in the chat as well. In the meantime, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. And I'll speak to you in the next video. Cheers.